All right. Says we're recording. You've seen my home in videos before. Now you're seeing my office, right? That was interesting. Camera focus seemed to change. So wondering if it had like an auto adjust thing on it. I hardly ever do anything in here. This camera has a much wider field of vision than my home one. Anyways, so I am going to attempt, as I did earlier today in section 9, to create a magazine ad in Word, and hopefully I will be much more successful. I just checked and made sure, and Word seems to be doing, I don't know, I didn't try all the features, but it seems to be working, which as the poor students that showed up in section 9 this morning can tell you, it certainly was not in our classroom. So here's what we've got. I actually posit the idea for my claim of policy that bats are an endangered species. We should protect them, and to try and do so, you should build a bat box, a bat friendly environment in your yard. Right. So what I've done is I did some research and stuff, and I have myself a file folder full of things. And I gathered some pictures that I might use, and I gathered some statistics and stuff from websites. And I decided which part of those statistics out here. Man, I've already forgotten. I am not screen sharing. I'm looking at stuff and I'm not screen sharing. I should use Zoom more frequently. Okay, so let's do a screen share and let's go to this document and share. Okay, this is a Word document that I have copied some facts from. And of course, I've got my documentation information here where I got my facts there, where I got these facts from, where I found some information about bat boxes, all of which came from someplace. I guess that's all from Bat Conservation International. Maybe not. If I got those from another source, I wrote it down and I'll find it. Again, I got a couple options for pictures. I also have the pictures, of course, and this document all saved in a nice, neat little folder so that I can find it later as I work. If I needed to come back to this document, copy and paste something, you'll probably hear me say I'm doing that. Um, but I won't navigate in the screen share back and forth between documents all the time. I will just be working in what will start as a blank Word document, and I will show you how to manipulate it into what I hope is a reasonable looking advertisement. Right? And in 2 pages, um, with what I've got in mind and what I practiced, I don't believe, okay, there's a picture of Batman I decided not to use, but I certainly could. I decided that one was just not really quite interesting enough. Of course, if I did use this one, I'd do it as a full page, and I would probably put my text over the top of Batman. I probably like cut him in half and then maybe stretch him so that I had more space at the top. It's an interesting picture, and of course, viewers would automatically identify with that, but I didn't think it was quite interesting enough, and it's kind of boring color wise, right? I wanted something that was going to get people's attention a little bit better, so I went back to the internet, found another one, saved it to my file folder, right? I've got this file folder full of stuff. All right, so I'm going to stop the screen share. So we're back looking at me again. And some of the stuff that's in my office, right? A bookshelf, there's more. A few pictures that are behind me, there's more, right? If you remember my house is a disaster, right? My home office. I just moved into this one a few months ago, so I haven't had time to screw it up yet. If you were wondering about the dichotomy between what you saw at my home and what you see here, at home, I've had 20 years to make a mess. Here, I've had 3 or 4 months and I have not yet made a mess. Okay, so let's pull up this blank Word document. And here it is. screen share, Word, share. Okay. A blank Word document, easy cheesy. To start, what I want to do is you'll notice these things here mark the margins on the page. And they go from what this calls 0, which is actually 1 inch in from the edge, to 7.5, 6.5, which is 1 inch in from the edge. So if you added 2 inches to 6.5, it's 8.5 by 11. And unlike this morning in class, I can see the edges of the document, and my margins are actually accurately represented by that tab. First thing I want to do, I'm going to put my cursor in here, and I'm going to make sure it's up at the top of the page. That's where the corner of my margins is at right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Layout, and I'm going to go to Margins, and watch what happens to that cursor when I go from normal to narrow. That's only a 1/2 inch in each direction, right? It went from 1 inch to 1/2 inch, but I'm going to go back the other way. Look how much that cursor seems to move. It's really only half the width, but you're actually creating an extra inch wide and an extra inch top to bottom. So now we've got a piece of the working area, 7.5 by 10. And if you figure out the square inches, I'm not going to, it's a lot more room to work in than when the margins are at 1 inch. Now I'm intrigued. I'll have to do that math later. All right, so I changed the margins to 1/2 inch. That gives me a lot more space to work in, and I'm going to want that space. All right, now the next thing I'm thinking is I decided, again, I'm going to work with bat boxes. A white page is not going to work for me. Okay, so I'm going to go to the Design tab, and I'm going to go out. I got to move something here. My little zoom window was covering up the stuff I needed. I'm going to go way out here to the right. And by the way, you will not find all of this stuff in the Outlook version of Word, and you will not find it where I am showing it to you. In my first class, we actually found page color, but there was no Design tab. We found it someplace else. So I'm working in the full version of Word. Of course, this is available to you as MTSU students for free. And all you have to do is like Google search MS Word MTSU, and you'll find the instructions how to download it. Okay, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going over to page color. And again, if I come over to page color and I just hover over colors, I get to see what they're going to look like on my page. And of course, I'm working with bats, right? Black, because black is a color that we associate with night, which we associate with bats. And bats, of course, are kind of scary and mysterious to us. So black represents mystery. I'm rocking with black. I could also do something like there are lots of different options in terms of like blues. I could do a really dark blue, a color associated perhaps with nighttime, but it has a sort of different symbolic value than black does. It would look approximately the same in terms of aesthetic, but it doesn't carry the power that does. So that's where I'm going to start. I have a black page, right? And of course, when I'm working on a black page, if I go back to the Home tab, which is where I pick my fonts and stuff, I don't know when they made Aptos the default in Word, but it sucks, Heine. I'm going to go for something a little bit fancy, but still super easy to read. And that is going to be simply Times New Roman, which used to be the default in Word before Calibri was. And Calibri, of course, was the default before this Aptos thing, which I really find myself despising. I do not like the way it looks. Okay, Times New Roman. Times New Roman is a little bit fancier, but that's all right. It's still super easy to read. And I'm going to center my text. And right now it says my text is red, but I'm guessing that if I type something, oh, it's white. Word has automatically changed it so it shows up against the black background. That's good because if it was black, I wouldn't be able to see what I just typed there. And we want to be able to see what we type, um, in all likelihood, anyways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type some text in here, but I'm actually going to change my font color to yellow. Okay. Now remember, I am attempting to motivate a reader, and yellow against black is going to provide super bright contrast. It's going to get people's attention. They'll probably, maybe, I don't know, until I get it all put together and I get to think about it. I think they'll probably see the text first. And yellow, of course, is a very energetic color, and I want to energize my reader too, right? My viewer. So I'm going to work in yellow, and I'm going to start out with a command word, right? Who is my audience? You. And then on a separate line, oh, and there's something that I don't know if I want to do. I'm going to go back and I'm going to take that out for a second. And I'm going to switch to no spacing. And when I switched to that, it changed me back to that stupid font. So Times New Roman, I'm going to start at 11. I'm going to start in yellow. I'm going to start centered. And on my top line, I'm going to put you. That's to get people's attention. And then I've selected the image that's going to appear on this. Again, you saw the image of Batman, right? I found a really cool image of the Batcave. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play off of that. You don't have to be Bruce Wayne. And of course, I hope everyone knows who Bruce Wayne is, to build a bat friendly, 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 there we go, habitat. Okay, that's going to be my text. Now, I'm going to want to mess with that. I'm going to want to make it bigger for one thing, and I'm probably going to want to try and make it pretty darn large. That looks like it's taking up about half of the page, which is about what I want. I'm going to stop there. Everything's on one line. Now, you'll notice that when you use the enter button, the return button, it capitalizes the start of every line. I don't want that. I want this to read like a sentence. Now, Bruce Wayne, of course, is a proper noun, so it's going to be capitalized. But I want this to read like a sentence, and therefore I don't want a capital at the beginning of every line. Okay, so far so good. I'll put in another enter. I'm going to scroll down. Okay, that's almost half the page. I want my text to take up a good chunk of the page. And now I'm going to go to insert, and I'm going to pick pictures from this device because again, I have a folder. I have a folder that should have my images in it. Where the heck did the images that I want go? Oh. Okay. I'm going to do something different, apparently, because this isn't wanting to let me, it's only looking for my JPEGs. I actually have in my file folder a something that's referred to as a, oh my God, where's it gone to? Hold on just a sec. Okay, I need to do a little bit of work here. So I saved a file from the internet and it changed it to an MS-DOS application file. So what I'm going to do is find that image that I want. It says your app can't run, this app can't run on your PC. Okay, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to try and drag this into my Word document. Okay, so instead of trying to use the insert thing, which was only showing me the JPEGs in my folder, I went back to my folder and I just drug it in here. That's all I did. And I just moved my cursor so it's after the picture. And here in this line, there's almost overlaps, right? And I've got quite a bit of black space down at the bottom. So I'm going to go back to home again, and I'm going to go from single space to space and a half. And that's going to create some space there, and it's going to close this space up a little bit. The other thing, of course, I can do is I can click on my picture and I can try and stretch it a little bit, and it's going to stretch it downwards. That's fine. That's kind of what I wanted, actually. So far, this is my first page, and I hit enter, and my cursor jumps to the next page. I still need a documentation line on that last page. So I'm going to go down. I'm going to change the size of my text because my text for my documentation is going to be small, right? And that changes my cursor size right there so that when I go down a couple of spaces, all of a sudden I am underneath the picture and my text is small, and I'm going to go left justify that to move it out of the way, out from under the center, although I'm not sure that the center would be a terrible place for it. But what I need to document is not this image because it's already got, it came with the website printed right on it. That's kind of handy. So hopefully everyone will put together the idea of Bruce Wayne and recognize this as the Batcave, right? So I'm kind of counting on people's pop culture knowledge to get my attention grabbing information across. And the top of this page looks really empty, and I'm not really thrilled about that. So I'm going to add some more stuff. I am going to find some place here. Okay, I'm not finding it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my Word document where I copied a bunch of stuff, and I am going to look for, oh my gosh, where's it at? Where's my other Word doc? And of course, you guys can't see this Word document. Where the heck? Where the heck? Dang it. Okay. Hey, it's all right. It's all right. I know I'm stressing hard. Okay, there they are. There's my wee little batses. All right, so I'm coming back here, and I'm going to put my cursor right there, and I am going to paste in a little bat, right? Of course, this screwed up my text because the text alignment is completely wrong. So I'm going to go right click and go to my text wrap box, and I'm going to select this. Now that allows me to move my bat all over the place, but it's still, because of the size of this box, is really messing with stuff. So one thing I can do is I can click on this and go to the picture format tab, and I should be able to actually edit that picture a little bit. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to find it. Editor. And can I, okay, that's a text editor. That is not what I'm looking for. I want something, well, I could do this, but that's going to make my bat smaller, and that's really not what I had in mind. Someplace I should be able to edit the, there we go. I had not clicked on that yet. Now, I feel so much better. Someplace I've got a crop button, and I'm going to crop, and I'm just going to get rid of a whole bunch of that black box around my bat so that what I have left is nothing but bat, almost, at least, right? I don't want to get so close. Maybe this one's a little bit much. I want to make sure I've got my whole bat there. Then I press enter. Okay, and it looks like I sort of screwed things up. But I'm going to click back on there, and now I can go move my bat around. Looks like I added an enter in there. There we go. You don't have to be Bruce Wayne. Still moving my text around a little bit, so I might have to do some things after I'm done. I might even try a different, and I don't know if you can see these pop-ups or not. Through, is that going to do what I want it to do? No, not yet. You don't have to be Bruce Wayne. Yeah, that box is still messing with things. I could do something else perhaps. I'm going to try a different form of text wrap where my bat is actually in front of the text. Okay, that looked like it did what I want it to do. I'm going to undo a bunch of stuff. And then I'm going to change my text wrap option to put my bat in front of the text. That means that the text stays where it's at. I move my little bat around. Okay, and I don't know if I want to put him up in the corners, if I want to put him down here in this empty space a little bit. But one thing I do want to do is rotate him a little bit. That'll help me fit him in there a little bit better. And I'm going to copy, and man, I hope you're seeing these pop-ups. I'm going to copy that bat, and I'm going to put my cursor back here again, and then I'm going to paste him. Okay, did the same thing again, mess things up. This is still my little bat, right? So I'm going to click on him, and I go up to text wrap options, go in front of, and then I'm going to move my bat. And of course, now I've got them both exactly the same angle and everything. I don't really like that. I want to turn him so he's going the other way. And now I'm trying, you know what I'm going to do now? Because it's kind of hard to see exactly where I'm at. And that's a lot of black, right? So I'm going to go back to my design tab. I've got to click off of the picture first, and I'm going to go to page borders, and I'm going to put a border around this, not anything that's terribly complex, but not just a single easy line either. And I'm going to go whole document, and I'm going to see what kinds of options it's given me. Okay, I'm going to not do any of that. What other options do I get with this? Art with color. I'm going to make this the same color of yellow as my text. I'm going to go, okay, there. Okay, so now I've got something to work with here. And again, it's all the way around my document. And now I've got something to kind of line up against a little bit better. I'm going to tip this bat a little bit more, maybe a little less, because I don't want them to be exactly the same. I'm going to move that bat down a little bit. I'm going to move this bat down a little bit and maybe tip him even a little bit more. I don't want them to look exactly the same, right? Too much symmetry can be a bad thing sometimes. Okay, so now I've taken up some of this blank space. I could try him up at the top, but I think that would look a little bit hokey. I think if I was going to put them at the top, I'd have to de-angle this one a little bit so it fits better. I really kind of like them filling up this gap. I might make them a little bit smaller, and I might make this one the same as it is, but a little bit smaller. That way they don't seem to be quite as intruding, right, onto the text. Click off of that. Okay, maybe that's a little too much tippy. Let's straighten him up just a little bit. Still not exactly the same. This one's pointing off to the side. This one's pointing a lot up. I like a little bit of variation, but not a ton. I'm kind of into symmetry. I'm not particularly into asymmetry, let's put it that way. although on the next page, we're probably going to see some asymmetry. Now, when I added that, I lost a little bit of my text line, but there's still plenty of room there to put in documentation. And again, this image has its own documentation. I wrote the text, so I don't have to worry about that. But these little bat guys here, they need some documentation. So I'm going to pop over to my document that I've got stuff already figured out in. I didn't go into this completely blind, right? I practiced this yesterday. Imagine that. I practiced this yesterday. I meant for this to be such a cool lecture, and I guess you're still getting it, but it's, it was supposed to happen in the classroom so you could ask questions. And I'm going to copy my documentation text. And it says use destination theme, keep source formatting, merge formatting. I'm going to go with that. Okay. Now my text, when I put it in here, because it's the way I saved it on the other page, because I knew I was going to work on a black background, and therefore I want my documentation to blend in quite a bit. That's almost too hard to see. So I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go back to home and I'm going to go from 9 to a 10. Better. I can read that more easily. Again, I don't want my documentation to call attention to itself, but I do want to be able to actually read it. Okay. So there's my page one. I have a big bunch of text that interacts with the picture of the Batcave to get people's attention, kind of connect with them in a how's a good way to put this? In a pop culture kind of way, right? I'm trying to connect with something they're familiar with. And on page two, I need to present more of my actual argument. I have to provide enough information to convince people to do something. And I want them, of course, to build a bat-friendly environment. And a lot of people might not know what a bat-friendly environment actually entails. So that's the first thing that's going to end up over here on this side. And again, I'm going to go back to centered. And this was what size? If I click on it, I see it's 48. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick 48 again. And let's see what happens. You can build a bat box. Exclamation point, because again, I want to be as motivating as possible. And once again, I don't know how I feel about the capitals here. You can build a bat box. And I think instead of lowering my capitals on this page, I'm going to capitalize this so it looks like a proper noun. It's actually not. It's a generic label, but this is you capital, can capital, build a bat box, capital, exclamation point. I like that. Okay, so I'm gonna rock with that. And now, of course, I have choices to make. And I need some more text. And again, in the websites that I went to, I found some statistics about bats in Tennessee, about bats in a general sort of sense. I found information about how to build a bat box. So I have composited, and again, if you remember, I'm gonna stop this screen share and go back to my other document real quick. Screen share, other document. Oh, where's that? Oh, there it is. Okay. And yeah, screen sharing is not as easy as you might like to think it is. So I've got some information about building a bat box. I've got a couple of pictures of bat boxes, and I have all this data that I collected from websites, and it's too much, right? So what I did was, this is kind of interesting. These are bats found in Tennessee. This would be part of my documentation line. This is interesting stuff. Not very many people know this. And of course, this is sort of assuming that the audience of my essay was Tennesseans. right? And then I've got stuff about bats in general, and I've got stuff about building bat boxes. It's too much. If I tried to put all that on my page two, I would overwhelm my page two. It would be too crowded. So I decided I would include a little bit of this stuff, a little bit of the stuff about building a bat box, some information about where you can find plans, right? I've got these plans here, but that's a lot to put on a page and have people be able to read it. So instead, I just am going to provide not a link, but the web address for that. And I composited the information I'm going to use. And now I'm going to go back to my other document, screen share again, and I'm working here, screen share. Okay, this is where we left off at. And I am going to find the information that I composited out of all that stuff. I'm going to recopy it. Back. And of course, you guys didn't get to see that. And I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to just keep source formatting. Whoops, I missed some stuff. Okay, so what I didn't get was my list. I'm going to pop back over to my document. That's because I didn't even bother to copy it because it's just right the first time. And I'm going to copy the list from the top of the page, copy back to my other document again. And I'm going to paste this in. And I'm going to put merge formatting. That'll turn it yellow automatically. Okay, but now I've made it so big that it doesn't fit. I don't need this. This is actually going to be part of my line. I'm going to stick a colon in there. I'm going to change the text size of this down to, oh, something still legible, but I don't want a lot of attention on it. Okay, it's still a little bit big. What I might need to do is actually shrink this down a little bit. If I go from 48 to 36, what happens? Well, it all fits on the page, but I'm still not really rocking to that. I like the bigger text there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this text a little bit more, and I'm going to include this time the top text. And I'm not sure where I started at. Boy, I blew that. Okay, so I'm going to click on this first, and I see that's Calibri 16. I'm going to knock this down to about, the next option down is 14. I'm going to knock this down from 20 to 16. So it's all taken up less space. And now I have room for just about everything I want. Let's see if I can get a documentation line in there. My documentation on the other page was a 10, so I'm going to turn my cursor down to a 10, and I'm still on the same page. Awesome possum. I'm going to go ahead and leave that centered for now. And I wonder, no, I can't get another line in there. So I'm going to go, I'm going to knock down a little bit more space here. Do I have an extra return in there? I do. I'm going to take that out. That'll give me room for more documentation. And at the end of this line, I'm going to change my paragraph spacing from single to 1.5. Okay. And then so that this space is consistent with this space, I'm going to take this out and I'm going to go from single to 1.5. That way my spaces are consistent. I still have lots of room down here for documentation, so much so that I might even put in, I'm going to do something different because this sort of blends in with that. I'm going to highlight this text and I'm going to hit the tab button. And I'm going to move that text over. And that also lines this up with this. This is lined up with this. This part of the text is lined up with that. And I kind of like the way that looks, I think. Okay. And this is a pretty different thing than this stuff with bullet lists. I might make this a space and a half. Again, what I'm looking for is some kind of balance, something that's going to give me access to this text. And this is yellow, but because it's so much smaller than that, it feels like the black is bleeding into it. It almost looks green, but it's not. It's yellow, but because it's so much smaller, it looks different against the black background. And if you've taken an art class, you know that if you put a light color next to a dark color, next to a darker color, next to a darker color, the value appears to change, even though the light color itself does not change. It's kind of a cool thing that our eyes do, that our brain does. That's just as yellow as that. It's just that we don't perceive it that way. And you can play around with lots of things. Okay, so now I've got a whole lot of open space. All right, so I'm going to go for a different picture, right? And I'm saying I can build a bat box. And as you probably noticed on my other pages, I had pictures of bat boxes. So I'm going to find a picture of a bat box and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go, and I'm just copying it right off my other document. And I'm going to put my cursor here and I'm going to paste that picture in. Okay, and again, the first thing I have to do is change my text wrap. There we go. It's not messing with anything. Now, I could leave it like that, but I kind of don't like it. So, what I don't like is I could try some other things. So I'm in picture format. I could try maybe blurring the edges of it, right? That's not quite as annoying. Or I can undo that and I can do something completely different. I can come over here to the remove background button. Okay, so what happens is I'm going to mark the areas that I want to keep and it's already done it. This purple stuff, it's going to take it out. But what has happened is it's kept part of this post here, but not all of that post there. So I'm going to mark to keep this part too. Okay, if I'm going to keep that little tiny chunk of post it's already kept, there we go. Now I have the whole post underneath it, and I'm going to go keep changes. And all I have left now is my box against the black background. And I really rather like the way that looks, except I want to make it a little bit bigger. As a matter of fact, if at all possible, I want this picture to take up pretty much exactly the same amount of space as my text here. A little bit taller, and nobody's going to know the difference if I stretch that or not. And then I probably want to kind of look at what I'm trying to do is kind of use this exclamation point as a center. And I've got about, oh, that much. And I've got about, oh, that much. I don't know about that. I'm gonna actually quit thinking that way for a second, and I'm just gonna move it out about there. Again, I'm dropping the bottom down so it's about even with this bottom line of text. Click off of it and see what I've got. Now I have an image of a bat box, so people have a sense of what they would be building. I could have put those plans in there, but that was an expanded diagram. It doesn't give you a sense of what it's actually going to look like when it's done. It does have the information to build it. But again, what I did was plans and tips for building a bat box can be found at, right? Um, so far, so good. And my 2 pages, because they both have black backgrounds, and they both have the same yellow text, are pretty obviously meant to go together. But I've still got these 2 big spaces up here, right? And I've got my little bats. So I'm gonna, whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm gonna copy my little bat and I'm gonna put my cursor there and drop my little bat in there. and I'm going to change my text wrap to in front of, and I'm going to move me a little bat over here, and I've already got that bat copied, so I'm going to put my cursor there, and I'm going to paste another little bat, and I'm going to change his text wrap to in front of, and I move him out here. And now, once again, I'm kind of faced with the notion of I don't want them to be quite the same. I'm going to tip this one a little bit like this. I'm going to tip this one. I think I want to tip him like way over here. And I might move him up a little bit. And I might leave this one a little bit lower. Click off and see what we've got. And I clicked on another picture, so I highlighted it. Okay, I'm kind of digging on that. This is different enough from the other page that it doesn't look quite identical. This one looks a little too much. I'm going to tip it a little bit more. Now they're both kind of, this one's head is still pointed a little bit that way. His interior wingtip is high. This one's interior wingtip is high, but it's actually the other wingtip. So, didn't mean to. Yeah, didn't mean to click on another picture again. I'm just trying to move around a little bit in my document. Once again, I've got to move my zoom window. It's right in front of what I want to see. You can build a bat box. Some interesting facts about Tennessee bats. A couple of motivational facts. Lots of people like me hate bugs. And when you find out that a bat eats about 3,000 or more insects every night, that's a darn good reason to have a bunch of bats in the neighborhood. And one of these bat boxes, notice it says it's at least 2 feet high and 1.5 feet wide. Actually, 12 plus 4, 1.33 feet wide. That's a pretty big thing. And not just one bat will live in that. A dozen bats will live in that, right? Because they huddle together to keep warm. So some just sort of cool things. And there's a lot more information that someone trying to build a bat box should learn about. And that information, plans and tips, as well as this picture, I believe. No, the picture came from a different place, one that actually wants to sell you bat boxes. Um, all there. So now in my documentation, right? I'm down here. I'm going to go back to my other document. I already figured out where all my stuff was from. I've got it all here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come back over to the document that I'm working in. I'm going to paste that in there. I don't want that yellow. Okay, it's gray. It drove my cursor down an extra page. I definitely don't want that. I don't need another blank page because printing this is going to take a lot of black ink anyway. I don't want to run a pure black page through my printer by mistake. So I'm sure I've got 2 pages. And I'm actually relatively happy with this. I can always mess with it, right? Say I decide I don't like the black, I can go back to design again. I can go to page colors and I can just hover around, see what I like. Mm, that's a little too violent. Again, I mentioned you could use a darker blue, and I think I was on this blue. It looks okay. It's not quite the blue that's in the Batcave cut picture. That's a little bit closer. That's pretty close to the blue in the background. But again, I'm just not finding myself really digging the symbology. I'm liking the black. So that's what I'm going to stick with. And again, things like text, the type of text that you use, the shape of the text. I could always do this as well. Okay, I'm going to highlight a chunk of text. I got part of my picture in there. I'm going to highlight a chunk of text, go back to my home page, and I can actually Okay, I guess I have to pick something. But if I wanted to try Algerian, I could. Now notice that that box that's in front of the text shows up a little bit. I definitely don't think I want that. I'm going to go back to my Times New Roman. I like Times New Roman. It's just super easy to read, but it's not really plain. It's what's called a serif font. That means that it's got these little like drops on the ends of some letters. It's got these little fancy things on the ends of the sticks. It's a little bit fancier than Calibri. Calibri is almost plain straight ticks, sticks, and no drops. Those drops are called serifs, right? Calibri is what's referred to as a sans serif font without serifs. New Times Roman is a serif font, easy to read, but a little tiny bit fancier than something like Calibri is. And again, I can just highlight a chunk of text anytime I want, and I can mess with it any way I want. And it's all easy enough to undo. Let's try another goofy text. Let's try something like banquet script. Again, I'd have to mess with my bats a little bit because it's covering it up because it got a little bit bigger. Um, or the spacing changed, whatever it might be. I could do that, but I can always just hit my undo button, and there I am again, all free and clear to go. All right, last thing to do, file, save as, and then browse, and I will stick this. I'm gonna go to desktop first, and here's my folder for magazine demo materials, and I'm gonna put this in as sample spring 2024. And I will put this or the one that I found yesterday that I made yesterday while I was dicking around. I will put them into I will put it into because again, this is one document. It's two different pages, but it's a Word document, so they're both there. And it's kind of handy because you can see it this way, or I can blow it up a little bit, knock one page down to a second page. This is how I would experience it as a two-page ad. Again, I just turn the magnification down, they go next to each other, and I could even knock it down more. So this is what it would look like just if I saw it side by side in a format that I could access the whole thing at once. And I like that. You know, I'm prejudiced, of course, because I made it, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that per se. Lots of elements of my essay, a nice attention grabber, pop culture reference on this page. There's my command of what I want people to do. And again, very command-like in terms of its capitalization. Bright yellow is a motivating, energizing color. Um, a little bit of differentiation that actually came out as a link, which is why it colorized itself. I kind of like it. I know I could highlight it again and go remove hyperlink, and then it would go back to the text color, which is yellow. But I kind of like it as a hyperlink. I like the purple. Some of this is just Word working. It's trying to fix my issues stuff, but there actually are no issues. It's trying to get rid of this passive verb. Purchase bat boxes. You can purchase bat boxes. It's trying to get me to get rid of that helping verb be. I'm not going to. They can be purchased, right? It's kind of a dialogue kind of a thing. Anyways, so that's my ad. And I have no idea how long this video ran. I hope not too long. Um, but but again, you know, think about as you design, think about lots of different things, colors, placement, balance or lack thereof, right? Even on page 2, I had that bit of text on one side, that part of my brain that kind of likes symmetry, put the box on the other side, not just to fill the space, but it also provided symmetry. Not perfect symmetry, but some sense of balance in the center of that page. That's probably why I insisted on sizing it to the same size as the text, because that part of my brain that likes symmetry said those should be equal. Yeah. Okay. Well, I am gonna stop the recording, and I will see you Monday.